Okay, so so far I've sort of been motivating and describing the kinds of things we will prove. Uh, but today we will start in earnest. So today I want to prove some theorems about partitions and plane partitions. So first, I'll start with partitions and then I'll describe the analogous theorems for plane partitions. Okay. As usual, if there are any questions, please. So, so recall that a partition lambda is a sequence lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. lambda k. Lambda 1 greater than or equal to lambda 2. As I said, one can also think of this as infinite arrays, in which case you say that at most finitely many are non-zero, or equivalently you can say lambda is a partition of n, as then mod lambda, which is sigma lambda I, is so. Okay, so one natural question is to count partitions of n. So remember earlier when I described partitions, I was talking about partitions inside an m by n box, but where I didn't care about the size, but now I care about the size. So we want to count partitions of n. This is a classical problem. Ramanujan, for example, contributed a lot to this subject. So here is on Sage, you can, Sage has this inbuilt function number of partitions of n, and it's quite fast. So you can do 20, also do 100. You can see it kind of grows rather fast. So for example, let's plot the list of numbers. So Sage has list plot, and I can, you can see how it goes. So if you do, I don't know if it has list, it has log list plot. It has list plot semilog. Let me call this list L. Oh. Yes, it's okay. So you see, even with this log, it's growing. This is strange. Oh, I should do semi-log y. This way. So this shows you. So now it's plotting log of the number of partitions of n versus n, and you can see that it's growing slower than linearly. If it were a straight line, then that would mean that the number of partitions is exponentially growing, but this is slower than exponential. And this is, of course, one of the things that is a consequence of the Hardy-Ramanujan theorem. But anyway, let us try to count partitions. So it turns out that there's no completely elementary formula for the number of partitions. The Hardy-Ramanujan-Rademacher formula is the closest, but it's quite complicated. But instead, the generating function is nice. So maybe for those of you who don't know, for a sequence, let's say an, write an subscript, the ordinary generating function. We usually don't use the word ordinary. Is given by let's write here a of x is some n equals 0 to infinity. So here I'm going from 0 to a and x bar. So this is an infinite series, and we, at least for the beginning, we do not worry so much about conversion. So here, let me write where x is a formula. For example, if an is identically 1, then ax is the geometric series and you get 1 by 1 minus x. So generating function kind of encapsulates all the data about the sequence. So Herb Wilf has a very nice quote, and he says that the generating function is a clothesline where you hang all your numbers for display. So it's a very nice evocative image. Okay, so it turns out that the partition generating function is very simple, but not trivial. Okay, so let P of n be the set of all lambda, which is a partition of n, or cardinality of that. So I'll use hash for the cardinality because the mod symbol is kind of overused. Okay, so here's the proposition. This was known already to Euler, maybe even Euler. So sum n greater than or equal to 0, P of n, q power n is this infinite product, k greater than or equal to 1, 1 by 1 minus q power k. And the proof is kind of elementary. It's essentially by inspection. So you expand the right hand side. So it's harder to guess, but if you kind of expand the right hand side, you see. So RHS equals what? I mean, each of these is a geometric series. So the first is 1 plus q squared plus etc. Then the second is 1 plus q squared plus q to the 4th plus etc. And 1 plus q cubed plus q to the 6th plus etc. And so on, right? And now look at the coefficient of q power n. Then you will have to collect terms from each of these different factors, and you'll of course have infinitely many ones, otherwise I mean you have only finitely many non-trivial powers, right? Otherwise you're in trouble. So if you sort of see how each term comes about, so each term gives you a representation of n in a unique way. So if I pick a term, let's say if I pick q to the 6, that's like saying 3 occurs twice. This should be distinguished from the term q to the 6, which comes from 1 by 1 minus q to the 6. So, like that. So each term over here is going to give you 1. So for example, how many ways can you get q cube? Well, you can get q cube from here and taking 1 and 1 from here, and 1's everywhere else. You can get q cube from taking q squared and a cube and all the others 1, or you can take a q cubed from here and all the others 1, and there are no other ways. Everything else will be higher terms. Here the first term will start from 1 plus q power 4, and so it cannot possibly. Okay, so like that. So each term contributes in a unique way, gives a representation in a unique way of n as a sum of positive integers. Okay, I hope that's clear. And so that is the proof. Any questions about this? Okay. So this generalizes in an obvious way. So this to counting partitions of n from some subset S of n. Right? I mean, instead of taking all integers, if I so let Ps of n be the cardinality of what lambda in n, lambda I belongs to S for all I. So of course 0 has to be part of this, otherwise okay. So then sigma n greater than or equal to 0, Ps of n q to the n is the product k in S now 1 by 1 minus. So this is the kind of obvious generalization of that. So so for example, let S be the odd integers including 0. Then this should be Ps. P of 1, 3. Maybe I'll take 0 without loss. I mean without lambda in S, non-zero lambda. Let me take that. Make my notation simple. So then P135 etc. of n. Let me just write. So then Ps of n.
I mean, isn't there an issue with Ps of 0, or is it just 0 there?
We take Ps of 0 to be 1. Ps of 0 is always the empty partition is always there. Yeah, good point. So then sum n greater than or equal to 0, Ps of n q to the n is the product. I just rewrite things a bit. So it's 1 by 1 minus q to the 2k minus 1. Okay. So these are all the q particles. Another proposition is in the similar way is if we count, maybe I should write it up. So PD of n is the cardinality of lambda in n such that all non-zero lambda i's distinct. Okay, so in other words, okay, so we should do this in Sage. Okay, okay. So the other thing I wanted to show you is this generating function on Sage. So here is 1 by 1 minus x power I. So of course, you don't want to. I mean, it doesn't make sense to take this infinite product in Sage. So when you are testing this on Sage, you take up to a finite number. Let's say I've taken up to 8 because I've put 1 through 9, and I'm only looking at coefficients up to x power 8. So then everything, and I'm taking the Taylor series of this product. So you can see this product over here. So this is that product, and I'm using the Taylor series in x at 0. That is x equal to 0, starting at x equal to 0, and I'm taking up to the 8th coefficient. So that's the syntax for this. And you can see that, so let me do 10. So you will see that the terms match. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 15, 22. I mean, I haven't gone so far. But this is what it could be dangerous to do is to take higher coefficients when expanding only up to x power 9. So here you see there is a problem. So let's see. So let's look at this 22. That's okay. But you see 29 here and 30 here. So you don't get everything because you have only expanded up to 9, but if you expand up to 20, then you get everything. Okay, so 490 over here. Right. So you have to be a little careful, but it works. Oh, okay, yes. So now I was going to do distinct. Okay, so now let us see how to count distinct partition. So let's see. So let me partition of, let's say, 4 to 1. So this just makes the list 4 to 1 a partition, and I just want to see if I can check if something is distinct. So let's see. So I have in is, I don't have. Okay, is, okay, I don't have is distinct. I can do length, so this will give me 3, and let me do, can I do, okay, so let's see, so can I do set of law? Yes. And so if it's distinct, then the cardinality of the set, cardinality, no, set object is okay. Okay. Let us see what to do. So if I say S is set, then S dot can I do length of S? Okay, so that works. So now let's just check that this is correct. So if I do 4, 2, 2, it has length 3, but now I take the set and it has length. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to count this is sum 1 for law in partitions of 10 if law dot length is equal to length of S, a set of law. Okay, so there are 10. Okay, that's a funny coincidence. Let's see for 3. Okay, so there are only 2 because the partitions of 3 there are 3 partitions. Only these 2 have distinct parts. This has repeated parts. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to count this for n in range. Okay, so these are the sequence. This is the sequence of the number of distinct partitions of it. Okay, so this is what I call PD of it. Okay, is that clear? Okay, so let's go back here. So here's another proposition in the same vein as the above. So if I take PD of n q power n, I take the generating function, ordinary generating function of distinct partitions, then I get again a nice infinite product formula. So k greater than or equal to 1, but this is 1 plus q to the k. Remember that was 1 by 1 minus q to the k. This is 1 plus q to the k. And here also the proof is by inspection. So I expand the RHS. So the first term is 1 plus q, the second is 1 plus q squared, third is 1 plus q cubed, etc. etc. Now the coefficient of q power n gives the unique representation. Okay, I'm not going to belabor the point, but you get the idea. So if I want to take q cubed, for example, I get a q cubed and I get a q squared times q. Each term can only appear at most once. So then this is the natural representation, right? So this leads to a beautiful theorem of Euler. If you have not seen this before, this should be surprising. PD of n is P135. So number of distinct parts equals number of odd parts. Number of distinct. Okay, let me not write. This just says number of partitions with distinct parts is the same as the number of partitions with odd parts, and the proof is one line in generating functions. So let's maybe start with the right hand side. So GF of RHS is what? It's 1 by 1 minus q, 1 minus q cubed, 1 minus q5, etc. And now I'll multiply and divide by the other factors. So 1 minus q squared, 1 minus q to the 4th, etc. So now in the numerator I have all the odd fellows. I have 1 minus q squared, 1 minus, even powers, 1 minus q4, 1 minus q6, etc. And downstairs I have everybody. 1 minus q, 1 minus q squared, 1 minus q cubed, etc. And now you just factor component wise. So whatever in this order. So then you'll get 1 plus q. It's always a squared minus b squared. 1 plus q squared, 1 plus q cubed, etc., which is of course the GF of left. Okay, so it's kind of a very nice and elegant result, and there are many generalizations of this. There are also many bijective proofs. There's one due to glacier, and there's one. I think one of the best ones is due to Sylvester, and that's in the book Proofs and Confirmation, which you can look at. Okay, so this is all about partitions for now. Any questions before I shift gears? Oh, okay. So since now most of you are there, maybe in the last 5 minutes we could discuss programming issues. So some of you have emailed me saying you had some trouble programming in Sage. If you like, in the last 5 minutes we can discuss programming issues. Okay. So now I want to move to plain partitions. Okay. So let TP of n be the number of plain partitions. So you remember what plain partitions are. So maybe I should define them now. So we'll write. So we will write a plain partition as an array pi equals pi ij. We'll write it as an infinite array. It's just convenient. Ij greater than or equal to 1 of integers such that here I want to say of n such that let me squeeze it here. So pi ij is greater than or equal to pi ij plus 1. Pi ij is greater than or equal to pi I plus 1 j. No, so here I should have said negative integers, and sigma ij greater than or equal to 1 pi ij. This I will call this mod pi, and this should be equal to or maybe I'll write it there. Mod pi is this is okay. So I mean, this is just convenient because the edges are jagged. So for a partition, it's just one line, so it's not a problem. But here for plain partitions, it becomes a bit more convenient to write it this way. Okay. So just like the generating function for partitions, which I put over here, it turns out that there's a very nice formula for the generating function of plain partition. So just as an example, TP of 3 is 6. We had shown this, I think, in the last class, maybe. No, not in the last class. Oh, no, we had shown it before. If you want, I can write it again. So 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 1. Okay, so let's see if Sage. So now I don't know if Sage has it. Okay, let's just check. Oh, I wanted to do odd equations. No. Okay, so plain. So plain partitions of 3 list. Let's say if this works. No, it doesn't. Is not iterable. Okay. So so this frequently happens. So let's see what the syntax is. This will give you plain partitions inside a rectangular box. Okay, I see. It does not give you a plain partition of. Okay. So let's see. So I want all plain partitions of 3. So of course they will be inside a 3 by 3 by 3 box. So, oops. P is plane. P is this, and so P small p is p dot. It's a random element. What is it? Okay, here it is. So can I do p dot size? Oh boy. P dot count. Okay. Let me do some p. Oh, sorry. No, this isn't that. So let's see if I can flatten. Okay, so if I flatten p, you see it makes it into a single list, and then I can sum it. So it's 11. I think that's right. So 6, 7, and 4, 11. Yeah. And we can do p dot p3. Okay, so so this is how should I do it? Okay. So this is the origin over here. So 3, 3, 1 is like that. 1, 1, 1, and 1. Okay. So now let's see. Let's list all the numbers. So p for p in p if copy this. Sum flatten p equals 3. So this gives the 6 plane partitions. Okay. All right. Let's go back to what we were talking about. So here's a theorem I want to prove. This is a nice generalization of the plane partition the partition generating function. So n greater than or equal to 0. If I take pp of n q to the n, then I again get a beautiful formula. This is k greater than or equal to 1. I think this is due to McMahon. This is 1 by 1 minus q to the k raised to the k. So, so it's like 1 by 1 minus q, 1 by 1 minus q squared, and q cubed, cubed. Okay, so now I'm going towards proving this thing. So this, the proof of this is not so trivial. And I remember this McMahon was the same McMahon who proved the box formula, which also I will prove at some point. But this is a different kind of product formula. There, for the box formula, we had a exact product formula for a certain number of plane partitions inside an M by N, A by B by C box. But here, this number itself is not so nice in general. But the generating function is a nice one. Okay, so don't get confused. Okay, so now, as I said, I'm going towards proving this. So this will, I will not be able to do it today, but I will set up some of the machinery that we will need. Okay, so
one small point.
Sure.
So here also we have this, if we are restricting to a subset of n, then also we have this same product.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. Here that doesn't work. Oh, good question. Yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah. So you see, the technical challenges of going from this to the two-dimensional version are already formidable. So things will not follow in any simple way. There's going to be no simple. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a very optimistic view of the world, but yeah, it doesn't work like that. Okay, so now I want to set up some of the machinery. So we will not talk about plane partitions for the rest of this class, but I'll talk about some other things which will move us towards the proof of this. So hopefully we'll get to it. Yeah, we should get to it. Okay. So to prove this, we will need to go back to partitions. So partitions. So for lambda a partition, recall its Young diagram. Right, so this was so for 4 to 1 we had this. Oh god, I'm horrible at this. Okay. Actually, I just so if I change my page background, I think I want graph. Then I can do it much better. Okay, so let me show you. So now I can do that. So this is 4, and it adjusts the size. So this is 4. And now I can go back. That looks nice. Okay. So, okay. Oh god. Oh, I should have done that. I also need the boxes. Excuse me. Okay. So, so what we will do is we will do something again which seems ad hoc, but turns out to be very useful. So here's a definition. Standard Young tableau or SYT of a partition of lambda partition of n is a filling of its Young diagram with entries in the set 1 through n such that, so distinct, I mean there are n boxes and you are going to fill one of each, such that the entries increase along each row / column from left to right / okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to put the entries 1 through 7 here, such that you can as you go along every row they increase, and as you go down every column they increase. Okay. So let's take an example. Let me take lambda is 3, 2. So I want someone to tell me one filling. Let's start with one filling. So 3, 2 has 3 rows in the first, 3 boxes in the first row and 2 boxes in the second. So we have to fill them with entries from 1 through 5. So can someone volunteer and tell me one standard Young tableau? The easiest one.
Maybe empty.
Sorry?
The empty one. Meaning.
No. You don't have a choice. You have to fill.
Okay.
You have to fill this, and you have to fill the numbers 1 through n. So, for example, you can do
1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5 below.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Aradhya. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5 is one filling. I'm not drawing the tableau itself because as you can see I'm horrible at it. Anything else? Let's see if you guys can enumerate all of them. They're not too many.
1, 2, 4 in the top row, then 3, 5 in the bottom.
Thank you. Next.
1, 2, 5, 3, 4.
Correct. Very good. Anita.
1, 3, 5 in the top row.
Very good. 1, 3, 5 in the top row and 2, 4 in the bottom row. Is that it?
1, 3, 4 in the top row also works.
That's right. Yeah. Good. Upamanya. Anything else? Can we start with anything other than 1? Can I start with 2, for example?
No.
No, you cannot start with 2 because if you put a 2 here, then 1 has to go somewhere else, and then there will be some entry above, either above or to the left of 1, and that has to be strictly smaller, which is not possible. So 1 has to be here, that's forced, and it has. So the first row determines the second row because of the increasing pattern. So if it's 1, 2, then you have done everything. If it's 1, 3, you have done everything. What about 1, 4? If I have 1, 4, then the last entry has to be 5. And then I have to have 2, 3, but then that fails this. Right? Okay, so this is out. So it is correct. These are the uniform. So let f lambda be the number of SYT of shape lambda. I should have said what a shape is. So the shape of an SYT is the partition is the corresponding partition. Is the partition whose Young diagram. It is a filling off. I don't know a simpler way to do this. Okay. So then let f super lambda be the number of standard Young tableau of shape lambda. So this is a digression. So but it's still something that I think it's good to know. So among the most surprising formulas in combinatorics is an exact and beautiful formula for f lambda, for any lambda. So if lambda is okay, so maybe I'll first state the result. So for C, a cell in the Young diagram of lambda so a cell is a box. So let the hook of C be H of C, let me see, capital H of C. This is the set of cells to its right, to the right of C in its row, cells to to the bottom of C in its column and C itself. Okay, so this is the This is the collection of C. This is called the hook of C. And H of C be the cardinality of this hook. So what it looks like is if I have a partition like that, I have this cell over here. I look at the cells. Okay. I look at these cells. I look at these cells. So they sort of look like a hook. So that's why it's called that. And the reason for this definition is this beautiful theorem called the hook length formula. It's due to Frame-Robinson and Thrall.
Sir, is C included in the hook of C?
Yes, that's why I put a comma C. Frame-Robinson Thrall, 1954, I think. Yeah. So what this says is for any lambda, f lambda is n factorial divided by the product of C in lambda. By that I mean the Young diagram of lambda, H of C. Okay. So what this is saying is you divide n factorial by the product of all these numbers, all these hook numbers, and you amazingly get not only an integer but the number of standard Young tableau of shape lambda. So just as an example, if I take oh God, I'll have to draw it again. Okay, let me go back to graph and rectangle. So let me take 4, 2, 2, 1, and okay, so let me go back. This. So let's say lambda is 4, 2, 2, 1. Ah, got it. Okay. Okay, never mind. So let's see. So for these things in the corner, there's nothing to its right, nothing below. So the hook numbers is hook H of C is 1. Similarly for this and this. For this cell, it has one in its right, one more in its right, and nothing below, so it's 2. So I just count now. So this has 2, this has 3, this has 4, this has 5, and this has 7. Okay, and so I mean just as a check. So for this lambda. So f lambda is, what is the size of this? So this is 4, 6, 8, 9. So 9 factorial divided by 7 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 squared. And it's not obvious at all that it's an integer, but it is. Okay, so maybe I should do it quickly. So I have a 9, and then the 7 and an 8 go away. Then I have a 6, the 5 goes away. And I have a 4, and the 3 goes away, and then I have, oh no, the 2 also goes away. This number 9 times what is 24? Whatever it is. 240 minus 24 is what? 2, 1, 6. Okay, so it's an integer. Okay, so that's precisely the number. So if we go back to our lambda equals 3, 2, so that's the first example. So if I take lambda equals 3, 2, so if I, okay, I don't have the patience to do this whole rigmarole again. So I get 1, 1, 3, 2, 4. So these are the hook numbers. Then f lambda is 5 factorial, is 3 plus 2, divided by 4, 3, 2, which is of course 5. And remember, we got exactly 5. Okay, so this is an amazing formula. I'm not going to prove it. We won't need it now, but it's something. So I'll skip the proof. So. Proof. But I should note, for those of you who are interested, there are several bijective proofs. Well, what does it mean by bijective proofs? So this says that f lambda is n factorial divided by something. So if I move this product over here, this is saying, and so you want to find a set counted by n factorial, which is kind of obvious, set of permutations of 1 through n. And you have now a product of things. So you can write this as a product of sets. So the cardinality of this product of sets is the same as the number of permutations. So there are several bijective proofs exhibiting a bijection between this permutations and this product of this guy and that guy. And there's also one remarkable probabilistic proof. So those of you who know about Markov chains, there is a Markov chain on there's a random walk if you on the Young diagram, and its stationary distribution gives you, in some sense, the value of f lambda. It's not direct, but it's I mean the part going from computation of f lambda to the stationary distribution is easy. Just the random walk itself is very nice and not trivial. Okay, as I said, I'll skip the proof. We don't immediately need this. It's just for your general knowledge. Also, I should say, I mean, why would you consider such a thing? So this looks like some recreational puzzle, right? I mean, here I give you this, and you sit and count this number of ways of filling it. But it's actually rather deep. So this SYTs are fundamental objects in the representation theory. So again, this is for those of you who have studied representation theory, or who know what it is, of the symmetric group. So in particular, the irreducible representations of Sn are indexed by partitions of n. So lambda, and so there are as many as there are partitions of n, which we counted earlier today. Moreover, the dimension of, so as you might know, a representation is a vector space with some extra structure. So the dimension of an irreducible representation indexed by lambda is precisely f lambda. And moreover, these standard Young tableau index a distinguished basis of this vector space in a very natural way. So all these come about very naturally. These are not sort of ad hoc constructions, even though they may seem like it at first glance. Moreover, here's a standard fact from representation theory. If I take all the partitions of n and I take f lambda and I square it, then I'll get exactly n factorial. And this is a consequence of a theorem in representation theory, which is that the square of the dimensions, so for any finite group, if I take all its irreducible representations, I take their dimensions and square them and sum over all such, I will get the order of the group. So this is a very special case of a general theorem in group theory, or representation theory if you like. So just to illustrate this, let's take n equals 3. So we have 3 partitions. So let's say lambda, s by t, and so on. So let's take the partition 3. So this is just a single row. For this you have to fill the boxes with 1, 2, 3 so that they are increasing along the row. So there's only one choice. So there's 1, 2, 3, and so f lambda is 1. If I take 2, 1, they turn out to be 2. This has to be a 1, and then there are 2 possibilities of filling, and so f lambda is 2, and the last is 1, 1, 1, and here you have a single column, and here also you don't have a choice. So then 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 1 squared, 6, which is exactly that. Okay, so so this illustrates this theorem. Okay, but all this is well and good, but why is this happening? I mean, there should be some nice reason for this. I mean, in other words, sure, this falls out from group theory, but you know, one would like to understand this better. So what does understanding better mean? It means we want a bijective proof. We want to understand the combinatorics. So why is this f lambda squared sums having anything to do with n factorial? So the bijective proof of this is a very important result. It's called the Robinson-Schoenstedt algorithm. Robinson-Schoenstedt Knuth algorithm. Or RSK. So this is going to give a bijective correspondence between this. So it's a bijective proof of the above fact. And what it is it's a bijection between pairs. So f lambda square is there, right? So you have to have pairs of standard Young tableau PQ of the same shape and permutations pi of the same shape, let's say lambda of n, and permutations pi in Sn. So if I take pairs here of the same shape, I don't have a choice here. There's only one pair, this with itself. Similarly, one pair, this with itself, and I have 4 pairs. You know, 2 cross 2. Right? So each one of them should naturally give me a permutation. So that's the idea. Okay. Okay. So right. So let's see. So to describe this algorithm, so maybe I should say before that. So the algorithm is properly called the Robinson-Schoenstedt algorithm, which was first. This algorithm is due to them, and then Don Knuth, the famous computer scientist, generalized this whole construction to to something else which we will need actually. So so he enlarged this bijection. So now it's just called by RS, by the term RSK. I mean, in a highly non-trivial way. So it's fitting that it has his name on it. Okay, so to describe this algorithm, I need this procedure called row insertion. So I need to describe what's called row insertion. So let a near Young tableau, so NYT, not New York Times, be a filling just like an SYT, with an arbitrary set of integers. It does not need to be a consecutive from 1 through n. Okay. So you just have some filling of integers which respects the SYT rules, which is that it's increasing along rows and decreasing along columns. Okay. So let P, which I'll write as Pij, be a near Young tableau, and K be an integer which is not in P. Then this algorithm, then we add K to P to obtain a new NYT denoted P, okay, in this way. As follows. Okay, so bear with me, the algorithm is slightly complicated. So in the first step, so let R be the least integer such that P1R is greater than K. So you read from left to right and you find the smallest column which has an entry larger than K. Okay? Nothing can be equal to K because we've already said K is not. So at some point it will be less than K, and at some less than K, and some point it will be greater than K. Assuming it exists. So if no such R exists, then add K to the end of row 1 and call the tableau so we are done. So if no such R exists, you add K to the end of the row and we are done. There's nothing more. If R exists, so that's the simple case. If R exists, replace P1R by K. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to replace P1R, this entry by K, and this procedure is called bumping. So I'll illustrate with an example. So let's say, let me call this K prime. So what we're doing is K bumps K prime, then insert K prime in the second row just exactly like procedure 1 above. So then you look at you let R be the least integer such that P2R is greater than K prime. And if it's not there, you add it to the second row. If it's there, you bump K prime bumps, I don't know, K double prime, etc. etc. So continue this way. Until we add a new element, some new element, because remember at each time the element being inserted is different. We add a new element as the last element of a row, which could be empty. So you could be creating a new row. That's also possible. Possibly empty row. Okay, so this is the algorithm. So let's illustrate it with an example before you get confused. So let lambda be 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, and let's take P to be this. I'm not drawing the boxes. So 3, so 3, 7, 9, 14, 6, 11, 12, 10, 16, 13, 15. Okay, this is our P. And now I'm going to add, or maybe I should P. And now P inserted with 8 equals. Okay, so now let's go slowly. So we have 3, 7, 9, 14. So in the first instance, we have to look at the smallest element which is larger than 8. So that is 9. Right? So in the first instance, 8 is going to bump 9. So let me circle it to show you where the bumping is happening. Okay, so now 9 is homeless, so it has to go somewhere. Now look at the second row. I have 6, 11, 12. So the smallest entry larger than 9 is 11. So I'm going to bump 11. So 9 is going to bump 11. Now let's go, let's see what 11 does. Smallest entry greater than 11 is 16. So 10 is as is. And so 11 goes and sits here. And now look at this row. So now 16 is the one doing the bumping, but 16 is already greater than 13. So there's, it just goes and adds itself over there, and we are done. Right? So is this algorithm clear? Are there any questions? So notice that if there were no 13 and 15, if these two guys were not there, then 16 would have gone and added the new column, created a new row. Okay. So then this has partition, I don't know, lambda prime after row insertion is what, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1. You know. In principle, you could have added, it could have added one more to any of these parts or created a new part of length. Right? Okay, so this is the row insertion algorithm. So it's easy to see that P insert K is also an NYT. I mean, one just has to check that it doesn't fail any of the increasing conditions for a standard Young tableau. And that's not too hard. I mean, here 9 is already less than 14 and less than 12. So, and you're adding something smaller than it. So, of course, it will fail. But it's also larger than the guys above before it by construction. Okay, just think a little and you'll work it out. Okay, maybe I should give it a miss. So now so this is the row insertion algorithm. Okay. So you see, it does not change much. It changes very few entries while preserving the N by T or S by T condition. Okay, so then the RSK algorithm is as follows. So what we will do is go from permutations. So pi is pi 1, pi 2, etc. pi n in one line notation. So we will inductively construct pairs of tableau. The plural of tableau is also tableau with an X because it's a French word. P0, Q0, P1, Q1, etc. up to Pn, Qn, where Pi and Qi have I cells for all I, and shape of Pi equals shape of Qi. Did I say, go back above, shape of an SYT SH of T. Okay, so SH stands for shape. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to build this step by step, and we're going to perform row insertion such that at each stage we add one cell, so that you have I cells at stage I. We start with empty, and the shape is preserved at each stage. What did I do? Oh no, sorry. Let's look at this. The wrong place. Okay. So let me keep it down. Yeah. Okay. So this is what we do. So first, now that we have defined row insertion, this is easy. It's not too hard. So So we start with the empty tableau, empty partition, empty tableau, no filling, and given Pi minus 1, Qi minus 1, set Pi to be equal to Pi minus 1, insert pi I, the ith element of the permutation. Okay, then add I to Qi minus 1 so that shape of Pi equals shape. Okay, that's the idea. And so at the end you will necessarily end up, so P is called, so then P is Pn and Q is Qn, the last entry. P is called the insertion tableau, and Q is called the recording tableau. Okay, so as I said, we should do an example before and we will write pi goes by the RSK algorithm to this pair. Okay, so let me show you this algorithm, and then I can take. Oh no, we have time. Okay, so yeah. Okay, let me do this process systematically. So let pi be 4273615 in S7. Okay, so we'll construct a pair of tableau of sizes. Okay, so what I'm going to draw is a table. So here is I, here is Pi, here is Qi. So when I is 0, this is empty. So 1 corresponds to adding 4. Okay, so now we are going to add 4. We are going to row insert 4 here. 4 is the empty, we have to insert in the first row. There is nothing to insert because it's empty. So it goes to the end of that empty row. So which is the first position. So 4 goes here, and Qi. So remember the procedure. We are going to add I to Qi minus 1 so that the shape is preserved. So then at this point, I don't have a choice. So this is going to be. This is the first position. I want to make sure. Okay, let me also write lambda. So here lambda is also empty. Here lambda is the singleton partition. Okay, next I'm going to insert 2. So now 2 is inserted here. So 4 is larger than 2. So the 2 bumps the 4. So I get 2, 4. And now I'm going to add a 2 to Q so that the shape Qi, so that the shape is to Q2 rather, so that the shape is. And so the partition here is 1. If there are any questions, please ask. Okay, now I'm here. So the third entry is 7. Now I'm going to insert 7. Okay, so I already have 2. Okay, so maybe I should go. So in the 7 is larger than 2. So it's just going to come to the end of the first row and it's going to stop. So nothing more to do. Right? It just stops at the first stage. So here now I'm going to insert a 3 to preserve the shape. So now the shape is 2. Now 4. So now what am I going to insert? I'm going to insert 3. Okay. So now life is going to get interesting. Okay, not so much. So now 3 is going to come. The first entry, the smallest entry larger than 3 is 7 itself. So 3 is going to bump the 7. Now 7 is going to go below, but it's larger than 4. So it's just going to go and sit at the end of the second. And now I'm going to add a 4 here. And the shape is therefore 2, 2. 5. The fifth stage. Now I'm going to insert 6. Okay, let's see what happens. So 6 is larger than 3, so it's going to sit at the end of the first row. So this algorithm also terminates over here. So then I have to preserve the same shape, so I add a 5 over here, and my shape is now 3, 2. Okay. Now I'm going to insert a 1. Okay, so okay, maybe I should have drawn the bumping paths. Okay, now you can figure it out. Okay, so now I'm going to insert the 1. So 1 is smaller than everything, so it's going to bump the largest element smaller than it, smallest element larger than it. That's the 2. So here in the first row, I'm going to have 1, 3, 6. Now the 2 is going to get inserted over here. 2 is smaller than everything, so 2 bumps the 4. And the 4 therefore comes and adds itself to the last entry over here. I mean, it creates a new row, sorry. Okay, and now I preserve the same shape. So 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, and now I add a 6 over here. So now the shape is 3, 2, 1. And at the last stage, I'm going to insert a 5. And what is it going to do? So let's see. So 5 now is going to bump the 6. So I have 1, 3, 5. Now 6 is going to go and bump the 7. And the 7 is just going to sit at the last entry of the third. So 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 7. And now my final shape is 3, 2, 2. This is my lambda. Okay, so is that clear? So these are my final things. So this is P and this is Q. Okay. All right. So any questions about this algorithm? Okay. So so the point of this algorithm is this theorem. So the RSK algorithm gives a bijection between permutations between Sn and set of pairs PQ of SYT of the same shape. Where lambda is a partition of n, the same. Notice that the row insertion says that if you start with an NYT, you get an NYT. But at the end, this NYT is also going to be an SYT because you have inserted all the entries from 1 through n. So then it's also SYT. Okay, so maybe I'll give the proof and then. So the proof, I'm not going to get into all the details. Oops. Sketch of proof. So the idea, whenever you want to show something is a bijection, the natural thing is to construct the inverse. So we will define the inverse. So if you can successfully invert this algorithm, that means you have shown that it is 1, 1 and norm 2. Okay, so we'll define the inverse. We'll start with PQ and we'll construct a pi. Okay, so the idea is to go backwards. And this is where you will see the point of this recording tableau. So this recording tableau tells you, so if I stare at this recording tableau, I can make out which was the last entry that was inserted. The 7 tells you the last entry that was inserted, and in this case that happened to be a 7. But remember that row insertion always starts at the top. So if this 7 had to be bumped, you want to see the which way does it go? You want to see the largest entry that is smaller than it. That's the only thing that could have bumped it. So in this case, it's bumped by the 6. So I go up and see what it was bumped by. It was bumped by the 5. So then this says, once we have reached the top row, we can see that pi n had to be 5, because that bump that was inserted here, that bumped the 6, which bumped the 7, and which bumped it. So then I get that the last entry is 5. Now then I reach this stage. Now I see what is the next thing that was bumped. Okay, so the last thing. So 6. So here in the recording tableau, I see, look for the position 6. Here it is. Therefore 4 was the entry which was last put. So now I go up and see what could have bumped the 4. It could only have been the largest entry smaller than it. So the 2 needed to have bumped the 4. If the 2 bumps had bumped the 4, now I go up and I see what bumped the 2. That had to be a 1, because 3 could not have possibly bumped the 2, right, for example. So then that had to be a 1, and that tells me what is the last but 1 entry, and so on. Okay, go backwards. So the idea is to go backwards by a natural inverse bumping procedure. And construct the permutation in Urdu, if you like. That is to say, you construct it in reverse. You read from right to left. Okay, this is the idea. There are some details that need to be checked, which I'm not going to get into. But this sort of gives the idea. Okay, any questions about this?
So like if we interchange the roles of the recording tabulo and the other tabulo, will the permutation we arrive at be the inverse of the permutation?
Very good. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, very good point. Yes. So there are a lot of nice properties that this algorithm satisfies, which also makes it very interesting. So this is exactly, that's exactly right. So if you interchange P and Q, you get the inverse permutation. There are, here's another question you might want to think of. What happens if P is equal to Q? Okay, you don't have to answer, but this is something you can think of. So there's a famous quote that says that the RSK algorithm is so important that it helped man land on the moon, but an actually correct proof of the RSK algorithm took a long time. So even though Robinson and Schoenstatt had this algorithm long time ago, there were lots of incorrect proofs until finally one was. Anyway. Okay, so let me stop recording.